Hello and welcome back to Wayports Racing League Season 3 in Live for Speed. Round 6 of 10 at Westhill GP Reverse. The drivers have been here before, but not in the reverse direction, so it's a new challenge-ish for everybody in Division 1 of Wayports Racing League. I'm Peter Butcher, and I'm joined in the commentary box once again by Travis Mellinger. Travis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pete. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm looking forward to this one. We have a lot of drama to look forward to, because we always do in Wayports. It's always good fun to watch these guys thrash the XFG around in Live for Speed. As I mentioned, round 6 of 10. We have 4 rounds left after today, with the season finale on October 2nd at Kyoto Ring National reversed. Kyoto Ring National, a pretty popular track among the drivers, and the season 2 season ended there a few weeks ago, and we look forward to getting there as soon as possible. Yes, today, Westhill National reversed. It's been a while since we've been here, but we're in the reverse direction today. 60 minutes of qualification are almost up. We'll bring you pictures of that in just a moment's time. Then we have a 21-lap race with a mandatory pit stop starting at 5 past the hour, roughly. Let's get to the track, Travis, and see what's going on with the drivers.
Yeah, so out on track, Mariano, as usual, at the top in P1 on a 206.23. A fairly long lap, even on the national variation of this circuit. These cars don't carry quite the speed of some of the faster, more powerful open wheel cars or the GTR cars. Andy in second, not far behind him. Andy has delayed his return travel home, still has a wheel with him in an unfamiliar place. Well, unfamiliar for his sim racing escapades anyway. Took his equipment with him on some travel, delayed his return trip so that he could drive here today, and is awfully close to Mariano at the top, just a tenth and a half off the benchmark P1 time. Santiago back in third, a little further off the pace than I think we might expect. Andy goes to the top, just as we were talking about him, goes to the top by 2/10. That's a pretty good lap from him. Santiago in third, 2:08.03, a little further off than we expected. Then Wellington there in fourth, 2:09, and then pretty spread out behind them. Mariano's teammate Valentina in fifth on a 2:11, and then 2:15, a full 4.5 seconds back to Arthur in sixth, and then Alex and Eduardo rounding out the back of the grid. Eduardo typically quicker. I wonder if we'll see a faster time from him. We could see him in the middle of the circuit now. Might have enough time. I can't tell from this shot where he is on circuit right now, but I think he'll have enough time to cross the line and start one more lap. Yeah, he's coming through the final sequence of corners now, so he'll start one more lap. I expect we'll see him go quicker because he's typically quite a bit faster than this. But close to the top, this is what we want to see, Pete.
Yeah, just on Eduardo as he goes off through. Actually, he managed to find a hole in the Armco. Of course, we're in the reverse direction, and that is a sort of an unofficial direction, I guess, because the Armco not safe for cars going in that direction. So, yeah, he found a gap in the Armco there, and that will be it for him.
Yeah, sorry, Pete. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, buddy. I was going to say he could reset. He could do a Shift R reset there, back on the, put it back next to the track, and he could start another lap. But he went to pits instead. So, yeah, that's too bad for him. He wouldn't have been able to carry too much speed coming down the front stretch. Would have, certainly lost some time coming in to start his laps. Mariano does a really big drift into the first corner there.
Yeah, huge drift.
But he could still have improved on his time. But that'll be all for Eduardo. He'll start at the back.
Yeah, he had a lot of damage on his car already, and his tyres were screaming. So there's probable that he probably wouldn't have improved potentially. Maybe doing some race practice as he headed off there. But anyway, Mariano currently P2, 0.2 of a second behind Andy, as Andy gives him a little honk of the horn as he goes past. This is Mariano's last chance in this session to improve, to try and start on pole, which he'd sorely like, because the run down to turn 1 is tricky for these drivers, and yeah, he wants to carry the momentum into the race. Andy, you've got to say, dedication to the cause, being here this week, delaying his travels back from his holiday to be in this race, which is mighty impressive, and he's stuck it on pole so far. Let's see if Mariano can improve on this lap.
He has looked pretty good through the first part of this lap. So there's the hairpin that we saw him go through right after he went whizzing by Andy. And that's kind of a deceptive corner, especially in the reverse direction, because it's a fairly late apex, and then there's the little kink after the corner. So you want to carry the car out wide.
Oh, he's given up.
He's pumped the brakes. I guess he felt like he didn't have the pace to take the top spot. So that will be Andy in P1. That's done. I was saying that he looked pretty good through the first sequence of corners. This apex that we just saw Wellington go through. No, wrong apex. My mistake. The hairpin that we saw Mariano go through is a deceptive corner, but he did it really well and carried plenty of speed out of the corner to the next sequence. But I guess he must have gotten the next sequence of corners wrong and then just gave up.
Yeah, as we see Wellington go off in the same place that Eduardo did, I expect we'll see a couple of cars going off, and he hits the Armco. And as I mentioned, this track not designed for that reverse direction. He goes through the Armco, and that was a huge, huge accident. Yeah, that's crazy.
You and Mo are the only ones. Yeah, here's a behind the scenes look for anyone watching, is that we stream, we view together in Discord so we can see all the same things, and I have a camera on. Mo and Pete would have seen me actually cringe when he went in between the barriers there. That was a brutal hit. Even in pretend race cars, that looked painful.
Absolutely. Andy for Vertex will take pole position by 0.2 of a second ahead of Mariano, the front row starters there. Then it'll be Santiago for Vertex, followed by Wellington for Quantum. Another great qualifying session, you have to say, for Wellington there. Out qualifying Valentina for the McLean Library team by almost 2 seconds, Travis. Arthur for Atrium P6, Alex for Step Up P7, and Eduardo for Quantum P8. Now, going into this round, there we have to quickly go over the standings in the series before the drivers hit the grid. So let's do that really quickly now. In the drivers' championship, we have at the top of the standings, it's Mariano by only a handful of points there, ahead of Andy for Vertex, Santiago, Andy's teammate in P3, Ian, who's not here today, in P4. So Valentina needs to score some great points. She's only 1 point behind Lilium. Lilium's driver Ian there, so potentially a P4 in the overall standings by the end of today. Then we've got Wellington for Quantum in P6. He too is close to Valentina and Ian, so he could look to improve today. Arthur for Atrium in P7 ahead of Eduardo for Quantum, and Alex for Step Up there. Very close at the bottom as well. So good work from Arthur and Alex, the relative newcomers to this series, Travis. In the teams championship, it's a slightly different story at the top to the drivers championship. It's Vertex who retain their lead, 12 points the lead now over the McLean Library. Quantum, remember that team switched from Bank of Wayports to Quantum in the last round. They are in P3 now in the teams championship. Lilium P4, Atrium P5, and Step Up down in last place. I think we're ready to go for this race, Travis. It's going to be a good one. That run down to turn 1, super important for the drivers. And here we go.
All right, there we can see the drivers on the grid in the background. We've got Andy on the left side of the grid, our right, his left, in P1, Mariano alongside. Lights coming up now, and they are off. Green lights. Andy gets a pretty good start there on the left side of the racetrack, leaves a lot of rubber down on the road. Mariano looks like he got a pretty good start as well, but he's not going to have a look down the inside. Andy's teammate in third, Santiago, is going to be able to tuck in behind Mariano coming into the first corner. Andy would really like Santiago to get by Mariano so they can take valuable championship points. In fourth position, Wellington coming in behind Santiago. There are four drivers off. Contact among all 4 of these drivers. Eduardo, Valentina, Alex, all 4 of them off. Looks like Eduardo has rejoined. Up at the front, Mariano, right on Andy's bumper. He's going to, but he looked to the left side of the racetrack there, which is really, that's the way you want to go, as they got more contact side by side. These two bumping and running,
Andy,
we would say in American race speak, puts Andy off into the barriers. Big hit. That's going to let P2 and P3 through. Andy, though, an amazing recovery. He put Wellington, I don't think Wellington expected him to be there. They didn't make any contact. Andy went through, made an amazing recovery back onto the circuit, powered back on into P3, now going to become P2 because his teammate Santiago's gone wide there. Pete, my goodness.
Yeah, that's a crazy start to the race. The 2 championship protagonists going side by side, and then contact up in only the second straight before the second corner even arrived. Andy was in the wall, bit of a tank slapper happening. We've got Alex and Valentina having a ding dong in the background as well. Alex there on the outside in that pink and blue Step Up livery. The McLean Library, familiar to all of us here in the background, and Eduardo it's pretty close at the back here, Travis. A great battle.
It's really close to the back here. I think this is the closest we've seen in the back. Oh no, I don't know if Alex mistook the cones there, but went straight through like he thought that was the racetrack. That's going to let Valentina through. Valentina caught up in that incident at the very beginning, in the back half of the grid coming through the first corner, and now all her competitors have driven off. She's just gone through into 5th position.
We've got a 21 lap race here, Travis. Sorry to interrupt. 21 laps, and look at the rear right of Andy's car after that contact with the wall. You can see visibly from this camera angle that it's tracking. It's slightly the rear track width is slightly smaller than the front, and that's going to be a pain. He might have to consider a damage repair if he feels like he's slowing down. Luckily, it's mainly right-handers here, so it shouldn't affect him too much, but it's still going to be a confidence knock as Mariano picks up some grass there and runs wide.
Yeah, you can see when he was coming by the camera, when we had kind of the long shot down the side of the car, you could see, exactly as you said, the wheels crabbing a little bit. As now we're looking at Wellington all alongside Santiago. These two are going to have a drag race into the next corner. This is where Andy and Mariano got together on the previous lap. We'll have to ask them how that happened at the end of the race when we do interviews. But Wellington safely through. Santiago thinks better of it, I think. Lets him by, gives himself a little bit of room under braking. They will come through as Wellington. Everyone hates those bollards. Wellington among them gives them a good punt into the seats. And they'll set off behind the two leaders. Andy 2 seconds behind Mariano now. Down to 1.4 as they came across the timing line. So Mariano's gotten something wrong, and Andy found a little bit of pace. We'll keep an eye on them ahead, but Santiago about as far behind Wellington as Andy is Mariano. Close racing everywhere.
Absolutely. I'm really impressed with Wellington there. Great move on Santiago, and if he can keep this together, he may start to take time out of the leaders as well. Wellington really impressed us last week and continues to do so. As Mariano climbs the hill, you can really see how steep this hill is. In the other direction, the direction that the drivers are used to, it's much different of a corner. It's off camber and super difficult to keep on the road. But all of the challenge is in the last sector of the lap here, especially this corner for the drivers. The exit curb really comes at you. The top two doing a great job, but we've seen other drivers, especially in qualifying, having trouble there. So expect, as the race wears on and the tyres get hotter, Travis, for some drivers to be going off in the grass on the second to last corner. This lead battle is super close again.
Yeah, that 11th turn is the most important corner on the circuit. As you said, like, you have to carry the speed through the corner, but it's kind of a deceptive entry and exit. So you want to carry enough speed through the corner as you can. You can't do it full throttle, but you have to carry the speed through there so you can take the car full throttle through that left-hand bend onto the main straightaway. It's worth a few tenths at least if you get it right, and you'll minus a few tenths if you get it wrong. If somebody's off in the background behind Valentina, that's Eduardo. That looked like a pretty amazing save. He was fully sideways in the grass opposite lock and managed to collect it and come back on the pavement. Well held by him. That could have been another disaster like we saw in qualifying with cars flying behind the fence. As we look ahead to Andy again, 1.5 seconds behind Mariano. These guys aren't using the curb too aggressively on the entry to this corner, which you might want to do to open it up because it's fairly slow, pretty tight. This is the corner we were talking about in qualifying. It's a late apex. Andy goes in pretty early. You can see the bollard there. But this is where it's tricky. It's really easy to run wide there. There's this kink on the exit of the corner. You want to keep the car, fairly wide on the entry, take late apex so you can just drive straight over that curb, carry the speed out of the corner, rather than do like Andy just did and go wide into the grass. Didn't compromise him too much. Looks like Mariano made the same slight mistake. Now we'll watch forward from Andy's camera again. These sweeping corners with these kind of blind apexes. This track is really fun because the racing line kind of flows among the curbs and kind of out into the middle of the circuit, not all the way to the edge. We drive on a lot of circuits where there are kind of these squarish corners where you line up the entry on the edge of the road and turn into the apex. Here, like the line kind of flows around through the middle of the circuit. So we see Andy get this just about perfectly. He touches the inside curb, doesn't carry as much speed through the corner as he could, but he doesn't go wide on those curbs. They go out nice and wide onto the grasscrete here, so he can pitch the car in. He wants to get it right down to the curb on the white line there, carry it out over onto the exit curbing in the slipstream. Beautifully done by Andy. Really great shot, so we can see how they drive the car through those last two corners. Still about 1.4 seconds behind Mariano. These two driving away from everyone behind them. Pete Wellington's 11 seconds back in third.
Yeah, I was mentioning that the gap could have been coming down. Andy with another fastest lap. That's 2 in a row, and 1.1 second the gap now. So Mariano will be beginning to see some beads of sweat starting to cling to his forehead, I'm sure, inside that virtual crash helmet. But that damage on Andy's car not really affecting him too much, which is it's good for us. It's not good for the McLean Library team.
No, you're right. Not affecting him too badly, though. I wonder if it's hurting him some. He just set the fastest lap of the race, and it was a mighty fastest lap. He's full of fuel to carry the race distance, obviously, but he did it in a 2:06.99, and it's a long lap. So within a second of his pole time, this is pretty quick early on in the race. I think you're right. Mariano should be sweating. Andy goes into this corner early again, but looks like he keeps it tighter on the exit this time. That looked better than he did on the previous lap. He's all over Mariano. Mariano will have to focus and be consistent. Andy, if for no other reason, he'll be motivated to take championship points. But he might be a little bit frustrated from that first corner or first lap incident.
Yeah, we'll have to ask their opinion on what actually happened. We cut away just as the drama unfolded on that first lap incident, but yeah, it ended up being Andy that was actually the driver that came worse off, even though it was Mariano we saw on the grass on the run down to turn 2. So very interesting stuff there. But again, a really nice fight at the top. The gap unchanged actually at the first sector, exactly the same first sector times for both the first and second place drivers on that lap. Let's see what Andy can do as we hit lap 5 in 1 corner's time. It's so close at the front. This is crazy considering how far back the rest of the field are.
Yeah, these last 2 laps, he's run a oh, that's a little bit too wide, but it looked like he kept the power down and kept the pace up. I was about to say that he's driving a clinic through the 11th turn that comes around to that sweeping corner. He looks really good. Still only 1.1 up. Just the timing just ticked over 1.6 seconds back, so he lost a little bit of time there. But he has plenty of time. He might want to repair. I don't know if it'll be worth it for him to repair, Pete. It seems like the car is working well enough despite the damage, and repairing would put him back into the clutches of Wellington. I don't know that Wellington would have anything for Andy, but I think that would end Andy's race, bar a mistake from Mariano. I think he just has to live with this.
Yep, he does. He's got it's a shortish format. It's still only 45 minutes in length. If it was a longer race with fuel stops and things like that, then yeah, sure. Repairing the damage might be worth it. But as I mentioned before, this is the only section really. These 2 corners here and the double left in the infield are the only corners where Andy's going to be struggling with the damage profile that he's got on that car. And again, you can see Mariano takes a super wide line around that hairpin there. Andy, a much tighter line. I'm sure Andy's gaining time there. He just needs to work out where Mariano's gaining that extra time around the rest of the lap.
Yep, I think you're right. And this overhead shot is really good. You pointed out that really wide line that Mariano took. I think Andy's figured it out, and he took a slightly wider line that time through. Really smooth through here. We talked about the flowing lines through the middle of the circuit, and they looked really good through that double apex left-hander coming onto this part of the circuit. Hearing in my ear that Andy is fastest through the first 2 splits, and you could see the gap coming down. Both of these cars well into the screen. Andy in the middle, Mariano just sneaking off the right side edge of the screen here. This is the most important corner on the circuit, as we've talked about before. Andy looks like he's a little bit wide of the apex there. Keeps it on the curb, so he's got the power down, kept it on the road, didn't go off in the grass, get dirt on his tires, lose the grip. He'll want to pitch it in the corner here and just touch the white line, though he goes awfully wide there. He'll have to back out of it to keep it on the curbs. Oh no, Pete!
Oh, it's a disaster.
He's lost the rear end of the car and had to chase it through the Armco barriers.
Yeah, he'll have to reset the car. He'll have to reset the car. He's going to try and drive it out though. This is not ideal. This is a chance for a free reset. Remember, the drivers get a chance to completely reset their car. As we see Wellington now streaking through the camera shot and into P2, Santiago into P3. A disaster for Andy. He's found a hole in the Armco.
It is.
He's reset now, but it's a bit late.
Yeah, he realized way too late that he could reset. He spent 10 or 15 seconds getting the car turned around and coming through the barrier before he just reset. Let's put Wellington in P2. We'll talk about Wellington in a second. And then Santiago, Andy's teammate, up into third.
Travis.
Yeah, that's terrible. Let's put Andy. Yeah, he's lost 20 seconds, 30 seconds now. He was right behind Mariano. He's come across that timing line 30 seconds behind.
Unbelievable.
That's terrible. He'll be sick. Just carried a little bit too much speed into the corner and just got over the curb. You know, I was saying as he was coming down to the apex that he carried a little bit too much speed and he would have to back out so he didn't go over the exit curb and get the car into the grass because it really upsets the car. And then he just didn't back out of it enough, and off he went between the Armco and the concrete. That's a shame.
If you're wondering why racetracks do not race in the opposite direction very often, that is a demonstration as to why the Armco and barriers and escape routes are designed such that the cars can be captured in a single direction. And yeah, this hasn't gone well for Andy at all in the reverse direction around Westhill National. P4 now, 14 seconds behind his teammate Santiago. This is a recovery drive now, absolutely.
Well, we've seen him do it before around Fern Bay a few weeks ago. All of the leaders did, kind of a rubber banding of mistakes around the circuit. And Andy was able to put together a recovery drive there and take valuable points. Mariano staying well clear of that curb on this time by. I wonder if he's a little more mindful of the dangers lurking on the other side of the curb after he saw Andy go off in his mirrors. We've seen these guys do recovery drives before. Now we've got pictures on Wellington. We should talk about him now. In previous rounds, he's looked really strong. I think Santiago is motivated to take that position back. Wellington awfully slow through that corner. That sweeper should be full throttle or nearly full throttle. You just kind of pitch the car in, and if you get the line right, the car sticks all the way out to the exit. Slow through the corner. Santiago caught up to him. Close race here now for P2. As we were saying, Wellington has looked really strong the last few races. He's improved. He's improved so much from the first couple of rounds. His pace is good. He's become more consistent. He looked like he was on for a podium last week before he made a mistake that cost him his race. And today, now we talk about this as well, how it's important for drivers to be consistent and be in position to capitalize on others making mistakes. And here he is in the catbird seat in P2 today after Andy's gone off with a pretty exciting mistake going off the circuit. And he's on for a podium. Maybe P2, P3 I think is on pretty easily as long as he keeps the car on the circuit.
Yeah, Wellington taking that wider line that we've seen Mariano take. It hurts you on entry, but it does not hurt you on exit, as you mentioned, Travis, with this kink. So yeah, neutralized again. Santiago and Wellington, both visitors to the podium. Well, or Wellington almost on the podium last time, was denied it though. He's currently sitting P2 and healthy P2 as well. Even if he loses P2, he's got a mile back to Andy.
Yeah, he does. It's a long way back to Andy. And I think Andy is probably a fair bit quicker than Santiago. Santiago, obviously the class of the field a couple weeks ago, took the win around the Aston Cadet Circuit. That victory kind of came to him. Mariano went off early, compromised his race. Andy was carrying ballast and couldn't really compete with Santiago, and chose to run the smart race, take P2 and a valuable team's points as Wellington, where the rear of the car is not Wellington's friend right now. Santiago also working the steering wheel, getting the rear of the car moving around a bunch. Wellington misses this apex again. Both of these guys quite a bit slower through this corner than Mariano. It requires a lot of confidence. If you get the line right, and you can drive the car down to the apex, you can get the weight evenly distributed on all four wheels, so all four wheels are sliding out to the edge of the circuit. You can pitch the car in and drive it out to the edge of the circuit. But if you don't have the confidence to get the car settled going into the corner, then what happens is exactly what we see on camera. The car really wants to get away, and you have to back out of the throttle, let the car settle down, and then drive through the corner more slowly. Behind them, Andy, motivated, set fastest lap of the race at a 2:06.23. That was Mariano's P2 time. So Andy running faster than everyone else had in qualifying. I think he has the bit between his teeth. He'll be frustrated for that mistake, Pete. And now looks like he would really wants to get to the front of the pack again.
Yeah, don't blame him. You could just see him flash into the back of the shot with this battle going on. So these two really are pushing each other. Both set PBs for the race in the last lap. So they're on their own pace. They're doing really well. But Andy is on a level above, and he's catching now. We can get a look at the gaps there. The gap between Andy and Santiago is 8 seconds, and we'll keep an eye as that gap comes down. This is a recovery drive, and it's not over for Andy. It's probably over for P1. Unless Mariano makes a mess of it at the pit stop or something, but it's definitely on for P2 for the Vertex team.
Yep, I agree. Watch Wellington a little early on the brakes there. Spooked Santiago. They're just not quite carrying the same speed that Mariano and Andy are through these corners. I think this is something we've known and accepted for a while. Mariano and Andy are the class of the field. Santiago's pretty quick. Won a race a couple weeks ago on merit. It helped that Mariano made a mistake, but Santiago did it on pace. Looks like he's struggling a little bit today. We'll remind everyone that he's on keyboard, so that makes it somewhat more difficult. And he's able to keep this pace up on keyboard. So I agree with you, Pete. On for P3 at the worst for either one of these drivers, though they're going to have Andy to contend with before too long. He is 7.5 seconds back of Santiago in P4. We can now see him in the background. That's Santiago on the left behind Wellington, and that purple dot in the distance is Andy, who has closed the gap a further 2 seconds on that lap, does a 2:07.22, a second slower than his previous lap, which was his best lap, but a fair bit quicker than all his competitors. Andy, a recovery drive, as you said a few minutes ago, Pete, but it looks like he could recover to a podium as long as he keeps the car between the lines.
Yeah, we can see Andy here, just in the back of the shot. He's visibly gaining now. Yeah, this is going to be a three-way fight in a lap or two's time, maybe 3 laps at a push, and that's really the story at the moment. Mariano has checked out. He's 26 seconds in the lead. He won't be touched by anybody here today if he keeps going the way he's going. So we're going to keep our eyes on this battle for P2, currently being led by someone who has improved dramatically over the last few months. It's Wellington. He's now got a G29, a Logitech G29 wheel and pedal set, and you can see that it's working for him, of course.
Yeah,
that's great stuff.
He's putting it to work really nicely here. That time through the corner, we've talked about a number of drivers struggling a little bit. Just gets on the grass. That might be the quickest way around. He got the car gathered up to then make a nice entry into this double apex left-hander. That looked scary over the curb, but pretty clean on the way through the next sequence of corners. No, he's putting that wheel to good work. He's driving really well. He looks really consistent, but they are no match for Andy. Andy is coming. He's only 5 seconds back now. This is much less than 5 seconds. It'll update to probably 2 or 3 seconds over the timing line here, as we look to Arthur and Alex now coming into their pit boxes. They might come out of the pits ahead of this race for P2. We'll have to keep an eye on this. Andy coming through the left-hand sweeper, turn 12, onto the main straightaway right now. Wellington still ahead of Santiago up there as we watch Alex take off from his box.
Well, he's actually struggling to find a pit box now. He needs to stop within the yellow box, and he's just not doing it. He needs to pull forward into one of the yellow boxes. I think he's confused as to how the pit stops work. Just needs to squeak forward a few inches and then stop just about there. There we go. Now he's found it, and his car will begin to repair. So a lot of time lost there for Alex, and he came into the pits just alongside Arthur there. So terrible loss of time, really, for him.
Yeah, that's another. You talked about why we don't typically run race circuits in reverse, and that is another example of it. As we see Andy visibly closer now, Santiago a little bit further back from Wellington, but Andy is lurking there. The pit boxes don't have a full box outlining the actual the logical box where the game expects the car to start. It's a 3-sided yellow line, and it is painted in such a way that you're meant to stop coming the other direction, where you put the front of the car on the yellow line that goes across pit lane. Not so in this direction. You stop with the front, if you will, the front of the pit box line behind you where the back of the car would be, so it could be a little bit difficult to find the correct position to stop the car when there's no visual reference ahead of you. I think that caught Alex out there a little bit.
While Mariano has to deal with some back markers for the first time in this race, he's currently battling with Eduardo. We are watching Andy from the top down, and Santiago's gone off. This is going to be an easy pass, so that's one done. Santiago just drove off the track in the infield, and that means that Andy's up to P3, and only 2 seconds now behind Wellington, who would sorely love a podium. And, if Santiago keeps making those sorts of mistakes, it's going to happen for him as Mariano hits the box.
Yep. The name of the game today for Wellington is consistency. As you said, Santiago made a mistake, gifted Wellington a little bit of breathing room. Don't think he'll have anything for Andy, as Andy is on his bumper now. Andy looking to the right side of the circuit. Oh, as he pits, he chooses to pit.
Fast entry. Oh,
yeah,
quick.
That was quick. That's a curious decision, though, because I feel like he could have gone through Wellington pretty easily, though maybe the two Vertex drivers want to drive around together. They both came into
Oh,
the
Andy
pits
missed
at the
his
same
box.
time.
Oh, and he
Yeah,
had
I
his
think
yeah.
yeah, the same thing's has caught Andy, where it's really difficult to see where the box is, and he's
Yeah.
going to let his teammate by in the fast lane. No, he's not going to let his teammate by. He'll come out along. Oh, not alongside. It's kind of hard to see from that deep angle, but Santiago cross.
Yikes!
Oh, Pete, you scared me.
Yeah,
Santiago
I
came
scared
across
myself.
the pit exit line into the racing line, nearly collected. Was that Arthur?
It was
Yeah, that
Arthur.
was
Yeah.
Arthur, who's off in the grass now. Nearly another violent schmozzle coming into the first corner.
Yeah, that would
Pete,
have been
my
terrible.
heart.
Anyway, yep, so Santiago lets Andy back through again, doesn't want to hold Andy up on his charge to try and catch up to the back of Wellington and Mariano. Now, Wellington has yet to stop now. Both of the Vertex cars have been in the pit lane. If you remember, Santiago went off in the infield. Andy's missed his box and he's had a bit of a slope exit. So Wellington has got a legitimate 9 or so second advantage at the moment. So let's see if he can keep that together. We've only got 12 laps left of this race, including this one. Wellington could be on for P2 here, legitimately.
He could. I agree. And consistency is everything now. All he really has to do is keep the car on the road. He doesn't. He doesn't want to toddle around the circuit. He doesn't want to drive around slowly. Too safely. Student driver safely. He needs to keep the pace up, but he can afford to be cautious and just hit his marks. He can drive 98% and take P2.
Yeah, well, you saw how quickly Andy was gaining on them. I think he took about 10 seconds out of them in 3 laps. By that reasoning, Wellington has about 9 laps of cushion, which probably won't be enough for P2 if he keeps driving like he was. He's going to hit the pit lane now as he slows down very early for the pit line here. Let's watch a pit stop and see where he comes out in relation to Andy and Santiago. You can see there the speed limit in the pits is actually 80 kilometers an hour, and he was only doing 40 as he pulled into his box there, Travis. So giving up time even in the pit lane. A lot of drivers forget that the pit stops are part of the race. You don't gain or lose, you lose time very easily if you don't maximize every single bit of speed down the pit lane. You've got to get up to that speed now. Look, he's doing 40 in the pit lane. He's got to bring that speed up. He's got a little bit of speed in hand, and as he comes across out of the pit lane, he's been mugged by not only Andy but also Santiago.
Yeah, I think we must have missed a mistake early in the lap because
Possibly.
he made a very cautious entry into pit lane. He was a really slow entry, not at full speed, and then hard on the brakes to the pit entry line, and then so slow down pit lane to find his box. But that would have cost him 5 or 10 seconds. He had a 10-second lead. He had a 10-second lead on the road when the Vertex cars were coming into the pits, and then did a full lap before he came in. So I think we must have missed a mistake, him going off somewhere to account for the rest of the time lost. That's a shame because he was looking so good, and just like that, P2 has evaporated into P4. Though we know he can keep up with Santiago, P3 might still be on. Andy, though, back in P2, he would dearly like to be in P1 after he's been punted off. Well, I shouldn't say punted off. After he was off in a clash with Mariano early in the race. I don't think he has anything for Mariano, but looks like he has P2 pretty well locked up.
Yeah, pretty much. As Wellington went off again in the background. So again, and he's gone for a big slide. This is going to be a crash into the wall. Wellington is on the ropes a little bit. He's got inside his own head, I think, at this point. He just needs to calm down and start taking time out of Santiago if he wants the first of his podiums in Wayports Racing League. And he's gone wide again. So yeah, I think he's a bit rattled, maybe.
Yeah, it looks like clearly frustrated driving to me, where he's made a few mistakes and he wants to get the car back under control. He wants to bring the pace back up, and he's just gone a little too hard, too early. He needs to slow down a little bit, breathe, collect his thoughts. As we see Santiago come through with that's difficult to do in a front-wheel drive car, a nice 4-wheel drift out to the curb. 7 seconds clear of his teammate now. It looks like the Vertex cars have P3 locked up unless Santiago has another big off like he did earlier. Wellington back there in 4th now. Valentina, I think Valentina would like to have done better today. She looked pretty strong for the start and then got caught up in all of the action in the back half of the pack. She goes way wide into the grass. She'll keep it off the Armco here, gives the crowd on the other side of the fence a nice dusting of grass clippings and back onto the circuit and around this left-hand bend down the front straightaway. It's a frustrating day for Andy, but still really good points. The Vertex team sitting P2 and P3. That will serve them well at the top of the championship order. Mariano doing most of the work for the McLean Library team today. As I was saying, Valentina would have wanted to do better, but she got caught up in the incident in turn 1 and now recovering herself as Andy is in P2.
Yeah, don't forget, Andy gets the bonus points for fastest lap if he keeps this, and he also gets the bonus point for pole. He definitely has that point locked up. But yeah, there's another point on offer for fastest lap. So this is damage limitation now, trying to make sure he gets as many points as he can in P2, as Mariano pulls another second on him this lap.
That was I enjoyed that shot on board with Valentina going into the first corner. It was a bit ragged for road racing, but it was pretty impressive rally driving to do the drift through the first sweeping corner and then over the grass and then back on the circuit over the apex. That was fun to watch. Mariano now looking to the outside. I think this is probably the way you want to do it if you're going around a back marker here, though. Alex is going to. Mariano saw that from a mile back. Really heads up driving from him. He wanted to take the wide line into the corner because you don't want to go all the way down to the apex in that sweeping right-hand corner because you want to settle the car on the outside to then brake while you're turning, which is really difficult to do in a front-wheel drive car like these. You want to brake while you're turning into the tighter right-hander. So he stayed wide to the outside to get the appropriate line, and then correctly predicted that Alex would go in a bit too hot, got on the brakes, let Alex sail by, and then looked like a true professional getting through safely as Alex went off the outside of the circuit. Heads up driving by him to see that coming. Now, good onboard shot from him. We see him taking this really wide line that you mentioned earlier, Pete. He just missed the apex there, but he does keep it pretty tight. He'll come over the end of the curb here. He's looking really good. Now put another 2 or 3 seconds on Andy. Andy was a fair bit quicker than the drivers in P3 and P4, but he is no match for Mariano, even after getting a fresh car, resetting after his excursion into the service road on the outside of the circuit.
Yeah, I think Mariano has done something to his line and his driving style during the last few laps, because look, Andy now is 36 seconds behind, so it's gone up again. So unless Andy's making errors, which, I don't know, possibly not. He had a slow lap, but not enough to justify this gap. So yeah, Mariano, just as we've said time and time again, he is the master of consistency at the moment, and it's the championship is coming back to him at the moment.
It is. I'm glad we got this shot on board. We only watched the last few minutes of qualifying during these events before we come on to before we start the stream to watch the race. So now we can actually follow Mariano around for a lap here, and he's doing a pretty good job of it. So we'll get to see the whole circuit from the driver's eye. We see him coming down at the front straight across the start-finish line now. A great shot from above the car, so we got a nice view of the circuit. This is really good. He'll come out wide to the left side of the circuit. He wants to just touch the curbs here. He could get a little more over the curbs to open up the corner entry. Stays a little bit wide of the apex like we talked about a few minutes ago. Really difficult to turn the car under braking, but he'll bring it right down to the white line. Just misses it, but it's hard to do under braking when all the weight's at the front of the car here. The rear of the car wants to get away. Makes it really difficult to get through that corner. Looking over his shoulder again, will come down the middle of the circuit. He'll gently bring the car over to the right side of the road. He wants to get it to the white line and ideally brake over the curbs on the right side of the track here. Great shot. We'll see how brave he is. He does. He gets all the way over there. Wheels on the other side of the bumpy curbs and onto the grasscrete. Nice smooth entry into that left-hander. Bring it back over to the left side of the road. Hard on the brakes. He wants to turn in late here. He's braked a little bit late, but he's managed to slow the car down. He drifts a little bit wide. He'll go over the grass just there on the exit. Now he'll keep the car tight on the left side of the road here. He'll be hard on the brakes over the curbs to bring the car through this constant radius right-hand corner. Here we go down to the white line. He wants to touch the curb there to carry as much speed through the corner as he can, open it up. Now this double apex left-hander will be hard on the brakes, wants to bring the car a little tighter to the left, and then drift the car out wide, one constant radius corner with 2 apexes in the middle of it. Over the curbs here, looks really, really nice, all the way out over the grasscrete on the exit. Really smooth. Now he'll be nice and gentle down to the inside of the circuit here. Let the car run wide out to the left. There's a little bit of a kink through here before he brings the car all the way out to the left side of the circuit. He wants to be over that concrete, pitch the car into the corner, dab the brakes to get it to turn in. A little bit wide of the apex, but still looks pretty good. Car out to the white line on the exit. And now he will want to go all the way out to the right side, just touch the grass, and then pitch the car on the left, plant his foot all the way down on the floor, just touch the curbs, perfectly done, out to the right side of the circuit, and off he goes down the front straightaway. A really, really strong lap for Mariano. Not perfect, not a qualifying lap, but a great demonstration of how to get around this circuit pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was looking pretty smooth. I was hoping that as he crossed the line that it would be the fastest lap, but it was his fastest lap of the race. So I'm glad we caught that one on the stream. Yeah, not fast enough to beat Andy. Andy must have put a really nice lap together because that looked pretty great. Mariano just giving away a couple of tenths through that lap by just missing apexes ever so slightly, maybe by half a car width to a car width.
Yep, and shout out to Mo there for those camera shots, cycling to different sides of the car and the different views, so we could see him getting right down to the white line next to the car or next to the circuit. Really, really good shots.
Yes, Andy there coming across P2. That's the gap. That is the void. 40 seconds nearly. 37.2. It went up again there, Travis. So yeah, this is crazy driving from Mariano. He really is on it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, crazy. As you said that, Mariano just did the fastest split one. We just missed him coming out of the corner there, but it looked like it was pretty clean as we caught him. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, crazy driving. That I think it's fair to say it's crazy that he's so consistent and keeping the pace so consistently high. But it's on the other hand, I would say he's doing so well because it's not crazy driving. Like he's fairly reserved. It's really smooth. Oh my goodness, Wellington has.
What on
My
earth
goodness,
has happened here? Yeah,
the right rear of that car has been shifted, just squished into the boot by half a
Wow.
meter. What's going on there? He's had a big hit somewhere.
Yeah.
this car. I cannot think of the name, Pete. It looks like an Isetta is what it looks like. It looks like a BMW
Isetta bubble
Isetta
car,
at the
yeah.
back.
A
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah, of course, the Isetta has two at the front and one at the rear. But the interesting thing is, this isn't as a result of the incident we saw on camera as he puts a lap over his teammate remarkably with that damage. It looks a bit strange, doesn't it? The damaged car overtaking the perfectly fine car that Eduardo is currently driving. Eduardo, interestingly, he hasn't had a great race today, has he? His pace just as Wellington rolls it, that's the damage that's caused that. The rear end. And he's reset the car now. This is great for Valentina. This is giving Valentina the chance to take over P4. But what a dramatic roll that was.
That was well, obviously the wheels are in the wrong places, but that looked like that looked like a Top Gear special, rolling Reliant Robins for fun. It turned the car into the corner, and then there was nothing to support the weight of the car transferring, and over it went. Valentina is struggling a little bit with this corner. It is a very difficult corner. Yeah, if the drivers haven't done a lot of practice here, it can be pretty difficult. It requires a lot of finesse and a lot of practice to find the line, this flowing line among all of these corners. Clearly struggling to find the right line through there.
Yeah, something which might explain why Mariano was faster in the last sector of the lap while they were battling with each other early in the race. If you remember back to Blackwood, Mariano was bouncing off the limiter, but Mo in our ears has told us that Andy this week is the one bouncing off the limiter. So he is top line speed limited this round. Hasn't stopped him getting the fastest lap, but it might be hurting his consistency.
Yeah, I agree. Especially considering even on the national circuit, the international circuit, the difference. There are so many long straights, and the circuit is so fast that it would be worth a second or two all the way around the track. But even here, with this very long flowing, I was about to call it a very long flowing straight, but I think I know what I mean, Pete. This long flowing last section with the really long run at full throttle. That will cost him a lot of time, especially like if he does a good job as he has done on some of the laps we've watched, where he keeps the speed up through the final sequence of corners. He'll be on the limiter, before he gets to the start finish line, and that'll just kill him coming into the first corner. We look back to Wellington now with his fresh car. He'll have to lap his teammate again. Lapped his teammate once already in this spot on the circuit, and then had his excursion into the gravel.
Yeah, he rolled the car here, and that must have been very entertaining for Eduardo, or not, seeing your teammate rolling off into the grass. Now, I think it's funny, isn't it? When that happens, it is just entertaining in the sim.
I agree.
But this time, he's got through.
While we were talking about the quantum cars and Wellington's excursion into the gravel, heard in our ear from Mo that Mariano is not in the limiter. So Andy and Mariano, they do have different setups. It's entirely possible they started with the same setup and Andy made some changes, or perhaps Mariano made some changes to avoid the limiter. But in any case, the car's somewhat different. Mariano not compromised for top speed in the fastest sections of this circuit because he has all of the gear available to him. Andy does not, so that's certainly hurting him. That gap now nearly to 40 seconds. Before all of that excitement a few moments ago, we were about to say that Mariano he has done it purely on consistency today. He has kept the pace pretty high as Arthur gets well out of the way there, a little too far out of the way, and we've seen it again, going the wrong way around the circuit, just into the Armco there, where it would normally let a virtual marshal onto the circuit safely. He's nearly taken the access road back behind the barriers again. The front of that car pretty badly damaged. Let's try this again. Mariano, who we see now, all on consistency. It's not crazy driving. I agree, crazy in that he's been so consistent and kept the pace so high, but he's been so cool and collected, so consistent. He's hit all his marks every time by. He's not driving too aggressively, and that has been the winning formula for him today.
Personal best lap from Valentina as we see Mariano coming across the line for McLean Library to start lap 19. That means 3 to go, and he has a 40-second gap over Andy. This could be the largest margin we've seen in Wayports Racing League, if I'm not mistaken. We'll have to fact check that during the week, but this, if it finishes like this, it's going to be an absolutely monumental lead, almost half a lap, Travis.
Yeah, that's huge. That is he inherited the lead on the incident early with Andy banging doors coming down the back straight, but Andy had an opportunity to recover. He wasn't too far off. He could have done it, and then just a terrible mistake a little further up the circuit, where we saw him just come through, cost him any chance at a P1. Behind them, Valentina is only 6 seconds, just ticked over. It looked like she lost a little bit of time on this lap. That's the closest race on the circuit right now. Valentina a few seconds behind Wellington. Wellington, who we have seen struggling, went sailing off on his lid into the beach a few moments ago. Valentina trying really hard to catch him. She looks really smooth through here. Nails this double apex. That's how it's done. Oh, she carries a little bit too much speed through the corner. I think that's a really deceptive part of the circuit, Pete, when you come around here backwards, because you see wide open tarmac, going straight on, and you feel like you can get on the throttle and drive the car, straight off the corner, and then suddenly cones, and you realize that's not the place to be. Santiago, what's this, Pete?
Yeah, what on earth has happened here? Santiago's coming to pit lane again, so I'm not sure what happened. Maybe a splash and dash, didn't have enough fuel, potentially. He has put some fuel in. This is going to bring Wellington closer, but we could have a battle on here. Wellington has been, if Wellington has sorted out his pace issue over the last few laps, there could be a close finish here. Santiago is already out and around turn 1, but yeah, interesting. Santiago clearly not with enough fuel to finish the race after his pit stop.
I think Wellington would be over the moon if he managed to recover a podium here. We could see him just there in the background. Santiago, all he needs to do is he just needs to stay off the grass and out of the barriers and finish the race. That's been a struggle for a lot of drivers today, so perhaps that's a bigger ask than we might have thought at the start of the race. But not over yet for Wellington. He can see third position up the road. He needs to avoid mistakes. He struggled a little bit in the last few laps. If he can cross his fingers for Santiago to make another mistake and then not make any further mistakes himself. As, speaking of mistakes, Valentina misses the braking zone a little bit there, locks up and goes wide, comes back onto the circuit. Yeah, Wellington has a shot here. It's not over yet, and he would be thrilled with the P3 after the tribulations he has experienced today.
Well, given 5 more laps, it's likely we would have seen Valentina, Wellington, and Santiago together, or something close to that. But we don't have that long left. We have 1 lap remaining. Once Mariano brings his XF GTI to the start-finish line, he's currently following Eduardo, one of the back markers, through, and he's got a lot of traffic ahead of him now. He's going to be very close to the back of Santiago, Wellington, and Valentina by the end of the race, because look at the margins. He's 1 minute 42 seconds ahead of Santiago, as he comes mighty close to the back of Eduardo there. Eduardo bailing to the grass. Hopefully he doesn't rejoin. Nope, there we go. Leaves him plenty of room, but close for comfort there.
Yeah, I remember last week, Mariano found himself in the same position at the end of the race, coming through back markers around the final lap, and tiptoed around the circuit to avoid any contact, any risk of an incident. They're probably a little bit too close for comfort, but appeared to be mindful of the situation the entire time. A near bump, but not too risky. Gets through without a collision. He'll come around this bend to start his final lap.
Wellington's
over
in third.
the curb here.
Wellington is in third.
Oh, what's happened there?
Santiago's come in the pit lane again. This is his 3rd pit stop. Has he taken fuel again? Did he miss fuel again? Oh, he got a drive-through last time.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's not terrible for Wellington, though.
No, it isn't. Santiago's bad luck.
Valentina's managed to get him as well.
Yeah, Santiago's bad luck is Wellington's good, and Valentina's too. Just like that, the Vertex drivers were on for a great recovery, and now Mariano about to lap Santiago in the background. Santiago will be. He moves off to the side to get out of the way responsibly. Eduardo off in the barriers behind all of this, so he will not be a factor in the leader's final lap. Awful luck for Santiago again, but Wellington's heart will be in his throat now. He's had such an up and down race. He's been looking for a podium, and now he is on for one. He has 8 seconds over Valentina. He can afford to tiptoe around, just keep the car on the gray part of the racetrack, and he will have his podium and good points for the Quantum team.
Yeah, that is a story today. Santiago has absolutely messed this up for him and his own team. That is inexcusable of an error there in the dying stages of the race. And Mariano from McLean Library, he's just going to have to watch this back and work out what's happened, because for him, this has been a walk in the park.
It is often difficult to tell from these deeper shots, but it looks like the way Mariano went through those 2 corners, it really looks like he's trying to set a fastest lap on the final lap of the race. He went really deep into the first of that double apex left-hand corner, and then was deep on the curb in the second half, carried speed through the corner to take the next apex, and now you can see him putting down a little bit of rubber all the way out to the edge of the road there, and now he'll come through this final bend. Personal bests on the previous split. He might just do it, Pete. Take it away.
Yeah, he needs to do it if he wants to take that extra point away from Andy. It would be a stab in the chest of Vertex's team's championship. Let's see what happens. He's got a bit of slipstream as well as he comes to the line, but it will be Mariano to take the lead. Will it be the fastest lap? That's the story. He's flashing the headlights. It isn't the fastest lap. But a very well-deserved drive. A little bit of a ding-dong with Andy was the only drama that Mariano saw in the whole race, besides Alex, the backmarker, into turn 1 a few laps ago. But Mariano, what a drive! Taking the win. But I want to talk about Wellington. He has only I say that he has quite a lot of the lap left because of how far ahead Mariano was. Look, still no one crossing the line. Andy will be the next car, but Wellington, if he can just navigate the end of this track, this will be his first podium in Wayports Racing League. And, think back to the beginning of Wayports Racing League, Season 1, as Andy crosses the line, 43 seconds adrift. Wellington, at the beginning of Wayports Racing League, was, a firm backmarker, it's fair to say. But now look at him. Driving for Quantum here, in P3, in Wayports Racing League Season 3. This is a lot of races. This is 26 races deep for him, and it's going to be a podium if he can just navigate the last few corners of this racetrack.
Yep, I think this has been one of the most difficult bugbears for him, but he gets it right into the middle of the circuit, cautiously down to the apex. No tires, no tire tracks down on the pavement. He's nice and cautious down here. He'll avoid the curb and the bollard. He doesn't want to lose the rear of the car. Valentina in the background, but pretty far in the distance. Wellington two more corners from his 26th, 27th race, you said, Pete? A little bit wide there, but he can afford to just coast through there and make sure he doesn't lose the car. His heart will be in his throat. He'll be thinking about, all the things that have gone wrong and all the things that could go wrong in this final corner. Looks really strong through here. Yeah, there, he's job done, Pete. He'll come across the line for P3. We can see him weave a little bit. I don't know if that was in celebration or if that was him catching the car, but here he is across the line. P3, well done to him.
Yeah, that will be a very popular podium. Not necessarily for the Vertex team, but for the drivers, they'll appreciate that one. Valentina, that was seriously close with Santiago at the end there. Yeah, P4 for Valentina. Santiago, actually, he'd already been through. He was a lap down in the end, of course, because Mariano got him. So Santiago finishing P5. Then we've got Eduardo P6, and then Alex just crossing the line now, just behind Arthur for Atrium. There we go. Alex, the 8th and final car to finish round 6 of Wayports Racing League Season 3, Division 1. Travis, what a race before we go down the results.
Yeah, that was consistently exciting. I am keen to hear Andy and Mariano's thoughts about the start, and then I think the story today is Wellington. Wellington looked strong, had it all go wrong, and then it came back to him, and he executed where he needed to take his first podium, a strong P3, good pace, finished on the lead lap. Yeah, from back marker to podium finisher, he'll be really proud of that. He should be awfully happy.
Yeah, absolutely, he should. So let's just go down those final classifications then. 45 minutes and 8 seconds for Mariano for McLean Library with a stonking 43-second lead. Easily the largest margin in Wayports Racing League Season 3, perhaps even Wayports Racing League in its entirety. Wellington for Quantum, 2 minutes off the lead in P3. A very well-deserved podium in the end, because Santiago, with those final lap errors, just gifting that place to him. Valentina then, in a bit of a surprise turn of events, brings home good points for McLean Library in P4. Santiago then P5, Eduardo P6, Arthur and Alex rounding out the order. And I think, Travis, it's time for some interviews.
I agree. We'll take a break for just a few moments to set that up, and then we will be right back.
We will be right. In fact, I don't think we have to wait that long at all because we have Mariano ready and waiting to come and talk to us. Mariano, what a victory! An absolutely huge lead in the end ahead of Andy. I want to hear your thoughts on that first lap incident with Andy.
Thanks. That was crazy. First of all, I didn't expect him to have the space. He never showed the space before, so that came as a surprise. I really gave it everything. I couldn't get the pole. Then I had at the first corner, I took a better line. I think I was braking a little bit less than he was, and so I had, I think I also, from what I saw, what I've seen in practice, no, in the qualifying, it was, I had a little bit more top speed in the straight. And so I knew I had a chance to overtake, so I tried to get myself, alongside him. And there was this. It seemed to me like he hit me, like it looked on purpose, and now he was just talking about lag. So I guess it was the lag. I don't know, but yeah, really, really crazy.
Yeah, Andy's just headed off to drive home. A dedication from him, as we mentioned in commentary, to delay his holiday for Wayports Racing League. Give that man a round of applause. Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, he took the fastest lap and pole position today, Mariano. So it's unfortunate, but you had the pace on him at the end of the race. You were opening. I think you opened the gap by 11 seconds on him after the pit stops. So great pace from yourself.
Sorry, there was like two different audio streams coming in. I guess I heard part of two different questions there, but I heard something about the pit stop. I don't know. I couldn't really get the question, but I don't know what happened to Andy's race. I did see him make that mistake, sort of touching the curb and spinning out. Obviously, I was glad to have that relief, but I wanted the fight. It was going to be a close race until that point. And then I just try to stay out of trouble. I couldn't focus. I didn't for this race I couldn't do a full race simulation, so I didn't know exactly the amount of fuel that I should have. So I was doing math in the middle of the race, trying to see if I, given the consumption, if I had enough. So I did my pit stop. I just exaggerated with the fuel, so just so I could focus on the racing and not have to worry about that. And so everything just went well there. No big mistakes at least. And I just don't know what got Andy even further. I thought, with that pace, I thought he would catch up to me in the end, but I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, after Blackwood, did you make any changes to your setup? Because you weren't hitting the limiter this week, but Andy was. So we
Right.
noticed in the final sector of the lap that Andy was off the pace. He was quicker than you in the first and second sectors consistently, but in the final sector, you were just pulling away in the end.
Yeah. I made sure that didn't happen this time. I have this base set up, and with the long straights, it tends to happen. It got me in the last race, but not in this one. So I'm glad. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, we picked up on that, and clearly that's helped you. But yes, I want to talk for a second about Wellington, who he had the podium, and then he had a slow pit stop and a few errors. He even rolled the car at one point, but he brought the car home in P3. You're going to enjoy the stream, I tell you. P3 to take his first podium in Wayports Racing League. Any comments before I get him in for an interview?
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm just, congrats to him. He got this wheel. He's been putting in the laps. We all had a tough week, so we couldn't find a lot of time, but this is massive for him. So I'm very glad. Obviously, Ian will be watching this and wishing he was here today. So I guess those two will battle out next time.
Yeah, well, let's get him in for an interview. You're welcome to stick around. Wellington, P3. Wellington has his microphone muted. We'll see if we can get a comment from him in just a moment. Hello, Wellington. Cannot currently hear him. We'll just give him a few moments to sort out his microphone, if that's possible.
It's the emotions. It's
It's just,
overcome with joy.
it's just too much. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, just on Wellington's podium there. It's his first in 26 rounds of Wayports Racing League. Pretty sure Wellington was the first, was involved in the first few races of the season. But it's been a long time coming for him. Great to see him up there. And I mentioned in commentary that he's one of the most improved drivers actually in season 3. Mariano, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been, from starting in a position where he thought it was best to not be in the same track as these drivers. He's been sort of getting the basics in his mind, just trying to get the best out of what he can do with that wheel, and so it's a great story that he's able to put in these times, even though you said he made some mistakes, but I guess that comes with the possibility of the podium. He told me he was really excited in the last race, and he thought he could get a podium until he made a big mistake that cost him. So this was his objective. That's what he told me in the week. So he got it. So he must be really thrilled. I'm guessing it's maybe a problem with the push to talk or something like that he's having.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, I apologize for that. A few moments ago, I twiddled the wrong knobs to try to get set up for interviews. While we're sorting out Wellington, I wanted to ask you, Mariano, about that incident with Andy and how when he went off, he came back on the circuit so aggressively. I think it was kind of a trick of the camera that made it look like he had just done a flyer back into the racing line. But can you talk about him suddenly reappearing back in the fight when it looked like he was going to be so far off the lead?
It was. Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I saw a lot of weaving, side to side, so I couldn't decide where to be. I just put myself on the right side, and then like you say, he just showed up out of nowhere and hit me. What he was saying was that it's lag with the connection that he's having. He's traveling right now, so I guess that's that. But I was just trying to not take any damage, and I knew that it was a long race, and I was just trying to survive that. It just seemed like he was not. I didn't know it was lag. I thought, from where I was, it looked like he was struggling and I thought maybe with grip or maybe with the wheel turning erratically, it looked a little strange, to be honest.
Sure. And then you had total control of the race for almost the entire distance, but a very exciting moment with Alex. It looked like you predicted that he was going to go a little bit too deep in the corner, and you definitely stepped aside and then got on with your race. Was that a heart-stopping moment?
Yeah, I was really nervous with that. I knew that I had a gap to rely on, but these things can be unpredictable, as you've seen. So I figured I'm gonna hit the brakes and hope for the best. But honestly, I thought, given the line that he was taking, that he would probably miss the corner one way or another. So I was just trying to stay on the outside and just wage it, see what would happen. I didn't think that he was going to go completely wide like that, but I thought maybe if we're still side to side, I'll slow down and let him through, and then we'll do it in the straight. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Well done today. Well done to you. Congratulations, and thanks for putting on a great show. That was a lot of fun for us to watch.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll talk to Pete, see if we could find Wellington here.
Yeah,
Pete,
we'll
how's
try.
that going?
We'll try one thing very briefly to try and get a word with Wellington. So bear with us. Hello and welcome back. We have Wellington with us. Wellington, congrats, P3, your first in Wayports Racing League.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was very exciting, and first of all, thank you for you guys. That was amazing. I mean, the first podium to the Quantum, and to me also, so pretty exciting.
Yeah, first podium for Quantum. It wasn't without issues though. You rolled the car at one point, right in front of your teammate Eduardo. That must have been fun.
Yeah. I had after my pit stop, I had some issues. So basically, it was game issues. But by the way, yeah, I did it.
Yeah, you did it. You managed to get round to P3, and we were saying in commentary that back at the beginning of Wayports Racing League Season 1, it was a struggle for you, and since you've made the switch to wheel and you've got all these races under your belt, you've come along such a long way and you've improved a lot. How much is that wheel that you've got, the G29, helping you?
Oh, I mean, the change was amazing because on Season 1 I was using a gamepad to play, and now I changed it to a wheel. As you said, it is a Logitech G29, and that is that is amazing because you can manage better the car, and you can feel the track, so you can do better the turns and all those stuff. So yeah, at the beginning, I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to adapt myself to the wheel because it's totally different. But now I think I'm getting the stuff. And,
yeah, you're getting the hang of it, certainly. Last week at Aston, you were so close to getting a podium. It's finally happened. Is this the start? Do you think you can repeat this going forward?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not so sure, but I think it's totally possible. But I think the key is practice because with practice you can know better the track, and it's not about have a wheel, but it is about use the wheel as good as you can. So
yeah, practice is super important. The more laps you do, the more practice, the better you get. Travis, any questions for Wellington? You certainly got excited during the calling.
I did. Not really a question, but just tell us about your feelings. As you had kind of an up and down race. You were near the front and looked pretty consistent, and then it all went wrong after your pit stop, and then suddenly it came back to you. Tell us the emotions going through that, and then coming around the last couple laps to take your podium.
That was, as I said, exciting, and special when I was fighting with Santiago, because Santiago is so fast, and when I passed Santiago, Santiago was there all the time. So I was thinking in my mind, okay, if I make a mistake, Santiago is past me for sure, because and that happened at some point. but I thought I saw Santiago had a throw penalty and then it was my time to to pass him. So, but my feeling was so exciting. I was all the time thinking, okay, no crash, no go outside the track because you will lose. So it was pretty exciting.
Well, you've gotten it done this time. The next one is easier. You can look forward to P1 and managing those emotions, and then you'll be an experienced sim racing driver. It'll come easily to you. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. I think that's going to wrap up our interviews for today. Great to see you on the podium, Wellington. Hope to see you again here in future races. Thanks again, Mariano, for filling the air while we sorted out Wellington's audio. And yeah, best of luck to you both for next round.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That's going to draw to a close the coverage of Wayports Racing League Season 3, Round 6, Division 1 at Westhill GP Reverse. Travis, give me your summary of the round. I think it's pretty obvious what the highlights were.
Yeah, there was a lot of action up and down. Mariano ran a clinic, just a commanding drive. Andy, a little bit unlucky, recovered pretty well, so good job to him to salvage some important points in the championship. But Wellington is the man of the hour. Had some difficulty during the race, but recovered. He executed where it mattered. Well-deserved P3. He's clearly very happy with that. We're happy for him. That was a lot of fun to watch, and really happy to bring it to everybody who was watching. That was a great race today. I
echo those sentiments exactly. Round 7 of Wayports Racing League Season 3 takes us to Blackwood Rallycross on September the 11th at 1 o'clock at UTC. We hope to see you all there, and we hope to see another exciting race as we had today. Hopefully Andy can stay with Mariano, though, because Mariano is getting pretty comfortable at the front, it has to be said. From all of us here, have a very good day. We'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.